Hello and welcome back to Geek Tangent. This is episode 7A. I'm Chris.
I'm Stefan.
And I'm Keith.
So we've been gone for a little while. In fact, a couple of months. I think our last episode posted at the end of May, and we've been taking a bit of a break. But we are spinning the gears back up slowly but surely, scraping off some of the rust. And with a couple of months off, we've got tons of stuff to talk about. We figured we'd just sort of throw stuff at each other this evening and see what banters around for a little while. I know I have a list of things, probably too much for one shot, but and I know the other guys have some things to talk about. So it's been a little while. So what do you say we dive right into it? Keith, you want to start us off?
Okay. Well, I've been catching up on all the things that we like to watch, movies, TV shows, that sort of thing. I had saved a movie on my DVR that, for whatever reason, I knew it was good. I just didn't watch it for the longest time. Last week, I finally watched it. The movie is called Snowpiercer, if you're familiar at all. It was something that Chris Evans did in between Avengers and Captain America movies. Ed Harris is in it. I'm not going to tell you who plays what part because that'd kind of ruin things. But it's a movie is based on a comic book. I think it's French.
Yeah, it's a French graphic novel.
Yeah, and you can tell, by the way, that there are certain scenes where there's like these little, not like cliffhangers, but you can tell where it was an episodic thing that was then put together as a film, as one story. They still did a wonderful job. This was really underrated. This was a sleeper of a movie that they didn't have a huge budget, but what budget they had, they made real good use out of. Anyway, the premise of the movie is global warming has gone out of control, and all the industrialized nations of the world decide to do something about it. They shoot this chemical out of rockets into the atmosphere that's supposed to recreate the ozone layer. They went way too far, and instead they turned the planet into a giant ice ball. All life dies, except some genius made this super train, and this super train goes around planet Earth, and it makes one trip around the planet every year. And basically the train itself is an allegory or a metaphor for like a caste system of society. So the person who's running all of what's left of society, human life anymore, is in the engine of the train, and the poor people are in the caboose. And there's an uprising, and it talks about political struggles, economic struggles, all this stuff. Great science fiction movie, good story. It has these great little punches of action, and there are some things you still see coming, but man, Chris Evans, I think he's an underrated actor. He's made the Captain America character I'm not crazy about real fun and interesting. The best Marvel movies, in my opinion, have been the Captain America movies. He was great in this. He played like the reluctant leader, which after, Captain America, he is like the perfect leader, and he's so not in this movie. It's a totally different character. It's really good. A lot of fun. Recommend it.
I remember seeing that like a year or so ago, probably when it first showed up on something like Netflix or something or other. Mm-hmm. I don't remember exactly what. And I don't remember a lot of the details, but I remember it having this really odd groove to it.
Yeah.
It was unusual, and there on one hand you're like, this sort of feels cheesy, but the further it goes along, you kind of realize, no, it's just kind of different, really. It's got a different tone to it, and the steps it takes and the beats and so on and so forth are a little off kilter. I don't remember exactly the end of it. It's coming back to me a little bit, but yeah, it's a kind of just a funky little movie that's totally worth a watch. And I agree with you about
I don't want to ruin the ending. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I don't blame it.
Ending, but I know exactly what you mean, because the ending kind of leaves you in a certain state, and it's worth watching. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it.
Yeah, I actually saw it in the theaters when it first came out.
Awesome.
Went with a couple of my college roommates, and yeah, I remember enjoying it quite a bit. I think part of the reason why the beats on it maybe feel a little bit off is that the director is a Korean guy, and this was his first English language film, and so I think this was his first foray into making a film primarily for a Western audience. And so I think there was a certain aspect of just his own storytelling was, his storytelling style was just a little bit different enough from like your classic Hollywood blockbuster. And so I think that's part of why it maybe struck an odd note every now and then. And I think also probably part of the fact is, like you've referred to, the fact that it was, based off of this episodic, comic book story and so you were kind of having to shoehorn aspects of the story into a cohesive 2 hour, or I think a little over 2 hour storyline. But no, definitely worth seeing. Definitely, an enjoyable film.
Put it in your Netflix queue. It's worth it.
Yeah, that totally explains how the tone was different. That's pretty funny. Hey, you're talking about movies, and I got to bring this one up just because I'm kind of a sadistic asshole. But Suicide Squad is coming out tomorrow.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you guys have seen the early reviews, but it's like totally in the tank, just like Batman v Superman.
Yeah, and that was predictable. You know, we know that they had gone back and done some reshoots. Very, very late in the game, after Batman Superman got some bad reviews, they, decided they needed to change the tone, and too little, too late. I'm sure I'll see it at some point, but it's it doesn't look good.
On the other hand, I have to admit that have you guys seen the Wonder Woman trailer?
Yeah. Well, she was the best thing in the Batman Superman, probably.
Yeah, kind of was actually.
Yeah, I haven't. I've seen a couple clips from the Wonder Woman trailer. I never actually got around to seeing Batman v Superman. I should stream it one of these days. I mean, just for the sake of seeing it. I'm a completist enough. I'm an old school Batman fan enough, and it'll be interesting to sort of actually see the cinematic portrayal of that classic Batman Superman fight from from Frank Miller's Dark Knight, sort of adapted. With the bat armor and all that.
I'm in the same boat as you, Stefan. And my thing is, I'm glad that we waited. And the reason is the DVD they just released put back in like 20, 30 minutes that they cut, which makes it a 3-hour film, it's not friggin' Lawrence of Arabia. But what it does is it makes the story make better sense. The stuff they put back in, it's true. It fleshes out some of the story, and DC tells you, like, we're sorry about the thing we put in the theaters. The DVD is better. Please buy the DVD. But too little, too late again.
But you haven't seen that, have you, Keith? You're just saying you're waiting for that.
Yeah, it's out, so I'll pick it up one of these days just to torture myself for the full 3 hours, and you can fast forward through the horrible parts, I guess.
I wound up I think since the last time we recorded an episode, I wound up BitTorrenting a copy of it. It wound up being this god-awful copy that had this weird green tint over the whole thing, and it was kind of scruffy, but I bowled my way through it, and it was painful. Wow.
Yeah, I know some of the dialogue is... Yeah.
I don't think an extra 20 or 30 minutes are going to be able to save that movie, and I think I've read as much that people who have seen it, like, it's, it doesn't really help per se. The bottom line is it was sort of a train wreck, and strangely enough, and I don't recall if we talked about this last time, Ben Affleck was the least of that movie's problems. He's actually a half-decent Batman from what little we saw of him. And I agree, the Wonder Woman character, from what relatively little we saw of her, she was great. Wonder Woman is a character that totally doesn't interest me, but I have to admit, they may start to save themselves with that first movie, that first Wonder Woman movie. We'll see. The trailer looked relatively solid, set in World War I, so on and so forth. But to rope it back around, the Suicide Squad thing. What was it? Was it Comic-Con that was just last week? Is that why we're seeing all this stuff? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
I think I even posted on Facebook way back when that, like, this is just, I don't have a good feeling about this. It just smells like a mess. And that was before Batman v Superman came out. And sure enough, and I know the last thing I'll say about it is, last I looked, not IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes had it at like 33 or 34%. Now keep in mind, this is before the actual release. It releases tomorrow, but critics are already putting their stuff up there. And I know that fans, DC and superhero movie fans, have been putting together a petition against Rotten Tomatoes. And I don't know where they're doing that or how, but last I saw, they've got like 11,000 people who are just like, this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, if the movie sucks, the movie sucks. Go see it if you want. But chances are, because in my estimation, at least, Rotten Tomatoes tends to hit it pretty solid. But this is totally one that I ain't going to a theater for. Maybe sometime down the line I'll bother, again, just with the completionist factor.
Does out of left field, does Rotten Tomatoes aggregate reviews similar to Metacritic, or is it just purely their?
I think so. No, I think it's they gather newspaper reviews and online reviews. I believe I think there is like a user voting component to it as well, but I think the bulk of their rating does stem from like actual paid movie critics.
And I think that's what makes it hard to argue with these things. You can say what you like about Metacritic, but you know, the fact is there's a lot of companies, people raises, you know, whether or not they get a bonus is completely tied to that Metacritic score. And the reason is it's taking a cross section of so many reviews that it gets hard to argue. You know, can a million Elvis fans be wrong? Yeah.
So before we move on, anybody else, since we're talking about movies, anybody got any other sort of movie thoughts they want to throw out there?
Well, so sort of similar vein to Keith about going back and finally seeing a movie that I'd been meaning to see for a while. I finally watched the Christopher Nolan Interstellar, which I remember at the time feeling like, you know, buzz was pretty decent, but for whatever reason, I wasn't super motivated to go see it in the theaters. Thankfully, I have a big enough TV that like I can watch it at home and not feel like I totally missed that immersive experience, because I feel like that movie, more than a lot of others recently, like probably would have benefited from being seen in a big theater.
Yeah, just visually, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, for listeners, there's one entire wall of Stefan's house that is a television, basically. Not exaggerating.
That's true.
Fair enough. Anyway.
Not judging or complaining. It's a beautiful television. It's, you know.
But no, I have to say I was pleasantly surprised at the level of complexity that they brought to the storyline. The whole notion of, you know, taking, you know, global warming and man fucking up his own environment, and sort of, you know, how that ends up impacting the world economy and all this kind of stuff. But then also like just dealing with the fact that they dealt with relativistic space travel, you know, the whole notion that as they went down onto the one planet that was close to the event horizon of the black hole, that like 17 years passed on the orbiting ship while McConaughey and Hathaway go down in the lander. Like, that's something that you almost never, I mean, modern science fiction manages to dance around the whole Einsteinian relativistic issues of you know, different time passing. It reminded me in some ways of one of my favorite novels is a book called The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. And it also deals with the notion of Earth having an interstellar war with an alien species, but the ships are traveling at relativistic speeds. So, like, you know, the soldiers are aging a year when in fact 30 years have passed on Earth, and so like totally the whole war itself takes like 300 years, and it's just the fact that Interstellar kind of dealt with some of that sort of stuff in a more scientifically realistic way, I thought was really kind of well done. But I generally felt like it was an enjoyable film and good storytelling.
Christopher Nolan's great. I'm a fan, and I'm sure people are tired of gushing about him, but I think he does great movies. Well,
it's funny you mention that. I saw it not that long ago, and I remember sort of by the end of it kind of going, well, okay, whatever. I mean, obviously visually it's amazing and all that, but what I really take away from that is I remember clearly when that movie was coming out, Wired magazine did a big feature article with him where he went in depth about the level to which he went to learn about, was it fourth and fifth dimension type issues and things like that. And it's one of those articles that's, you know, like 10 pages long or something. Yep. You're lost by page 5, but it was fascinating. And it was a great insight into how the guy operates and the dedication he has to the science of it and trying to figure it out and trying to figure out how to present it. It reminded me a bit of, strangely enough, another Wired magazine article that J.J. Abrams had done a few years before, which I actually saved because it was so interesting.
Yep, the whole issue was interesting.
He was expounding about that's right. He guest edited the whole thing. There's all sorts of little Easter eggs and stuff all over the place. But he was expounding on the value of not knowing, you know, like what's in the box and you have no idea, and retaining the surprise and the value of that. And these guys are two, like, you know, master storytellers who clearly have very different approaches, but to get some sort of insight, particularly on how Nolan helped but developed something like Interstellar in the background, was really interesting. It's probably something you could still find on Wired's site, and it's worth a look. But really interesting movie, and probably something that, like, intellectually he was ready to do after finishing Batman finally, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, and whatever he does, he dives in deep. Whether it's his first movie was called Following. It was a black and white filmed in London. But Memento, they went into and looked at people who actually had
that
these
movie.
Oh, me too. I bought the special edition DVD that you can play it backwards, so it plays it chronologically correct, which totally fucks the movie for you, by the way. But anyway, I always appreciate the depth. Not just Christopher Nolan, but his brother Jonathan, who writes a lot of this stuff. They do a ton of research, and I think they make intelligent movies. And I'm sure, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are tired of hearing geeks like us, wax poetic about the Nolans, but they make good movies. You can't complain. Same thing with the Coen brothers, by the way. Great movies, all of them.
Cool. So tell you what, that's a good place to. Why don't we take a break? We've covered a couple of movies here, and we'll take a pause. And it sort of makes sense to maybe dive into a couple of TV show things. And when we come back, what do you say?
Sounds good.
All right. Cool.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. This is still Geek Tangent. I am still Keith. Over there is still Chris. Over there is still Stefan.
Wait, let me double check. Hang on.
Yeah. So, okay, so we covered some movies. Of course, I've been catching up on TV as well. My DVR is completely like at 99% all the time. So I'm always forced to the Sophie's choice of TV, like either watch it or you got to delete it, otherwise you can't record anything else. So I'm getting through season 2 of The Flash. I'm almost through that, so I'll be ready when season 3 starts, and I'll be live with everybody else. And yes, the writing in season 2 gets a little more comic book-y, but they actually take cues from actual stories and stuff. So there are, once in a while, if you're actually familiar with the comics, it's like, hey, there's a little parallel. They, brought this in, whatever. Whatever. Barry's identity is the worst kept secret on the TV show. Like, he tells everyone, hey, by the way, I'm the Flash. Like, some of his enemies know, friends, his girlfriend. I mean,
yeah, it seems like every third episode, his old girlfriend, like, hey, I always knew. Why are you only telling me now?
Yeah, but whatever. It's an okay show. I still enjoy watching it.
I was watching it as well. I don't know if we talked about this, Keith, but so season 2 is the one that just wrapped up, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I followed it through to the end of season 2, but I got to say that like about 2/3 of the way through season 2, I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of went through this thing with a couple of shows where I just kind of had to face the fact that even though they were superhero related shows, it just wasn't grabbing me. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the other one. Yeah. So in both of those cases, I kind of followed it through and like, I think I'm done. I'm just not engaged enough. But
I get so tired of all the people that want to do superhero shows, but we don't want to do spandex. Looking at you, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It costs money, but do it. Like, whatever. They're doing it with the Flash. They have people with superpowers running around and the spandex, the whole deal. It doesn't look bad.
Have you seen, we were talking about Comic-Con just a little while ago. One of the other things that came out was a preview trailer for the upcoming Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season. And did you see that? You know who they're bringing in?
No.
Ghost Rider.
Really?
I have no idea why. I don't understand what the connection is, but apparently Ghost Rider is going to be a part of season 3.
I heard that this was a while ago when they were still like fleshing out what was going to be TV, what was going to be movie, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things I heard is that Ghost Rider was going to get his own show on Netflix, similar to Daredevil, because Ghost Rider is part of the whatever. If you follow Marvel Comics, there's the regular Marvel imprint, and then they have what they called Marvel Knights with a K, and that was the stuff that was like more mature and got bloody. That's where things like Daredevil, the Elektra series, somewhat recently in the last 10 years or so, not the Mike Deodato one, the one after that. So whatever, Ghost Rider was a Marvel Knights property, so that whatever. I mean, it's the ghost of a demon of vengeance, who burns your eternal soul with his flame coming out of his skull and shit. How do you make that a superhero? That's the most anti-hero ever.
It's possible that they're introducing. Now that I'm thinking about it out loud, I don't think it really makes sense. But maybe they're really reintroducing Ghost Rider since Nicolas Cage has butchered it a few times. Yeah. Maybe they're reintroducing it via Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and will perhaps move it on to its own thing. I mean, I know that 2 of the characters from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Sorry, we're going down a rabbit hole, but I'll be quick about it. two of the characters from this past season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spun off. They sort of got disavowed, and they were going to be getting their own show. One of them basically plays the Mockingbird character, and the other one's like her cohort, her husband or something like that. And that was going to be like a buddy show. I know it has since the whole idea has been bagged, so now they're basically just out of a job.
Yeah, because isn't Mockingbird's husband really Hawkeye?
Hawkeye, theoretically. Yeah, they're doing weird things. I don't quite understand how they decide what things wind up going to broadcast TV as opposed to which things become Netflix show, which you alerted to in a second. One of the other things from Comic-Con was that they started showing some preview trailers about some of the other shows coming up. We saw a quickie hit of Iron Fist.
Yeah, the trailer looks great.
Yeah, totally looking forward to that one.
Yep.
And I'm not sure it would be considered an extended trailer, but a trailer for Luke Cage as well, which I think is the next thing that's going to show up.
Yep, it is.
Which would be great. Yeah,
they set it up with Jessica Jones too.
Yep, and obviously they're doing they're leaning their way towards the Defenders.
Yep.
Which they have said publicly it's going to be a few more years down the line. I mean, they're still planning to do another Jessica Jones.
Yeah. Probably
probably another Daredevil. So the Defenders is going to be further out, but it'll be cool.
And now it's like, which Defenders? Because like the Defenders at one time or another included Daredevil, Ghost Rider, Black Knight. Like they had all these different weird, the Hulk, all the characters that are tied up in other properties too. So I mean, good. I'll watch it, especially if Daredevil's in it. But holy crap, I don't know what the Defenders are going to be.
One more crazy sidebar, and then I swear I'll finish. Let you finish your thoughts. You mentioned Hulk. Have you seen? We all know that Hulk is going to be in the upcoming Thor movie, but they're clearly taking elements of what is it, Planet Hulk?
Planet Hulk. Yeah, that's what I heard. Isn't that
I don't
nuts?
know how that's all going to fit, but like more power to them. Go for it. What the hell?
Yeah,
I think my theory about it is that it's bringing in more of the intergalactic element that was introduced with Guardians of the Galaxy, because they're going to have to be bringing all that crap together for Infinity War in a couple more years. But it should be interesting.
They still have the Achilles heel of the Thing. Yes, the X-Men. Yes, I know the X-Men. But see, Marvel doesn't own the X-Men either. Their gateways to all that cosmic stuff was generally Fantastic Four and X-Men, things that Marvel doesn't have access to. These are things that they sold off to Fox and Sony or whoever owns Fantastic Four these days.
Funny you mention that. I just read an article. Sorry, I said I was done, but I guess I'm not. You keep making me think it's a. I just read an article about how Marvel, the actual comic book company, is not going to be creating any more mutants.
Oh yeah, no,
because of this impasse with Fox. Yeah, they're basically like, "Fuck you, we're not giving you any more IP for you to steal for us for nothing."
So the way that they're killing them is they've created, reintroduced the Inhumans. The Inhumans was something Jack Kirby did way back in the 60s and 70s. I collected all of them when they first came out, or after they came, whatever the fuck. I had them all. But so now what they have is there's this mist that is like a test. And if you're an Inhuman, this identifies you as an Inhuman and your powers become real. If you're a mutant and you're exposed to the mist, you die. So Marvel they've already stopped publishing Fantastic Four years ago because they just want it to go away. And now they're killing off all the mutants, and there is a moratorium at Marvel Comics. You may not create a new mutant character at all because it just gives Fox more characters to make movies with that they don't want them to have. That's true. The other one I'm looking forward to that I haven't seen any trailers or anything for is Cloak and Dagger, yet another anti-hero. It's for people who don't know, they're two kids who are hooked on like cosmic heroin or whatever, or they were taking a experimental drug to get them off the heroin. I don't know. So it's a young black man who was mixed up with gangs and drugs and heroin, and a pretty white girl who got mixed up with drugs and heroin and prostitution, and they end up getting these superpowers, and it's really friggin' dark. They're two ex-junkies who they use their powers to kill drug dealers and stuff and rescue other drug-addicted kids, and whatever. Cloak has this power of darkness, and he'll just like freeze your soul and scare the shit out of you. And the other girl uses light to she can like shoot daggers of light at you, but her powers like make all the heroin like come out of people, like they're crying heroin out of their arms and stuff. Really kind of dark, weird, and creepy. Good luck. I'll watch it, but it's more like weird anti-heroes. I mean, I don't know how they do it.
Have they just real fast? Have they confirmed that they're actually doing that? I mean, I know it's been talked about, but has there been any official confirmation about that we've seen?
I thought so, but maybe there's just been so many rumors and, you know, people like me spreading it continually that it seems like it's a thing. But, you know, they made 2 Ghost Rider movies. I remember when I first heard that, I was like, oh my God, a flaming skeleton who burns your internal soul. No one. Yeah, they made 2 movies. They weren't good, but they made a couple movies.
Let me shift gears off the superhero thing for you, since we're still on TV shows, and bring up one that we were talking a little earlier about this. I know that you guys haven't seen it yet. We just binged through it about a week ago, and lots of people have been talking about it. Stranger Things on Netflix. I'm not going to give anything away, so this will be spoiler free. I just want to talk about the general tone about it for a sec. Obviously, you probably all read a little bit about it already, but it is one of these movies that tickles that funny bone of those nostalgic 80s movies, like across the board. Mm-hmm. It's set in that time period. Visually, it looks a lot like that. Story plot wise, there are elements of E.T. in there. There are elements of Poltergeist in there, and probably 2 or 3 other sort of cornerstone 80s movies that you could think of.
X-Files.
It's totally fascinating, and particularly, it's another one of those that. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. It's another one of those that, for our generation, you can't help but to sit there and go, "Oh my God, this reminds me of X scene from Y movie."
Yeah.
But it never feels derivative. It reminds me a lot of the movie that J.J. Abrams did a few years ago.
Super 8.
Thank you. That's the one.
That's the last movie I walked out on. I haven't walked out in a movie in so long. I walked out on that one.
No kidding.
Yeah, not because of J.J. Abrams, because the projectionist couldn't get the fucking film, the proper aspect ratio on the screen. I complained. They tried to fix it, couldn't do it. Got my money back, never saw it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, I don't blame you. But that was, you know, and Abrams himself said it, that was like his homage to the classic Spielberg 80s era type movies and tone and everything. And Stranger Things totally taps into all of that. It's totally like we watched it within like 48 hours. It's 8 or 10 episodes and we couldn't stop. It was amazing.
That's great. I've been watching again, to totally shift gears on television. I had watched for years the American translations of Sasuke. Sasuke is a Japanese game show, basically people running an obstacle course that goes through multiple stages, and, you know, very few people. The final stage, there are years in Japan. It's run twice a year in Japan. Same thing in the States, twice a year now. There's a lot of times no one runs the final course. They set up this whole big, you know, last stage that everyone's trying to get to, and there are years no one gets to the last stage, no winners, no crying, just go the fuck home. Everyone loses, and it's great. So they, whatever, NBC owns it over here. It's called American Ninja Warrior. And they run it like this time of year. It's on in the summer and like after Christmas when, you know, regular TV goes on a hiatus for a month or two, or like with the mid-season replacement shows come on. So whatever. So you can catch it in like now, July and August and January, February. And it's just very compelling. It's just people running an obstacle course, you know, one after another over and over. I find it oddly compelling, and I got my wife watching it too. It's good fun.
That does sound cool.
Yeah, sort of speaking of slightly nostalgic TV shows that are kind of riffing on older things. I don't think I mentioned this on our first episode after our travels, but when I was out in LA, the friend I was staying there turned me on to the Rick and Morty show.
Oh, great show.
I don't know if you guys have ever watched it, but
every episode. Yeah. Hell yeah.
So anyway, so it's an animated series. The 2 main characters are Dr. Rick Sanchez, who is kind of very loosely based on Doc Brown from Back to the Future, and his nephew Morty, or not his nephew, his grandson Morty, who is a slightly dumber version of the Marty McFly character, and they have all these great sci-fi, you know, adventures.
The Mr. Mises episode still fucking kills me. I've seen it 3 times, and I'll die laughing every time.
Oh,
yeah, they keep making more and more of them, and then they start like, you know, well, the answer is we need to kill Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a well written. It's dark at times, but cleverly written, very funny. Definitely worth binge watching. They've had 2 full seasons now, I think, of 10 or 11 episodes. I think a third season is coming up soon.
You can catch them all online. Go to the Adult Swim website; they're all there. They've made games now. You can go in the App Store, whether you have Android or iOS, they got it all. And there's a game called Pocket Mortys.
I haven't delved into any of the game stuff yet, but like you can walk into Newberry Comics and see like Rick and Morty merch on the shelf. It's definitely more of a hot property, but
Phil Hendry's on that show too. Phil Hendry is he was a radio guy in Miami years ago. He was originally on in L.A. And he was on in Miami for a while. Then he went back to L.A. Phil Hendry was great. He did a talk show where he was everyone, including most of the callers and the guests. I was on the Phil Hendry show one time. He picked up calls screenless, was pretending to be Dr. Laura, and just gave people horrible advice. So he was just like, bang, picking up a phone, bang, picking up a phone. You're on the air. There's no screening, nothing. So I was like, oh, this is my time to call. Called with a Phil Hendry show. I got on. I burped in his ear, and he said something like, yeah, keep doing that. Boom, hung up on me. Bang, next call. It was great. But yeah, anyway, Phil Hendry's on that show, and that makes it funny.
Yeah, they've actually got a lot of really good guest voices on there. Like Stephen Colbert's been on there. Patton Oswalt.
David Cross.
David Cross was excellent in that.
Yeah, huge David Cross.
Hell, they had Werner Herzog in one episode.
Oh my God.
Werner Herzog, he was he does guest voices lots of places. He's been on American Dad, where he was, a panic and saying shit that it's like, how did you get this guy to say this?
Strikes me, I don't know a hell of a lot about him, but personality-wise, he strikes me as like the last person on the face of the planet who would do that sort of shit.
Right? And as it turns out, great sense of humor. It's like deadpan, but he knows he's in on the joke.
Those people who publicly are all one thing, there's something else completely different. Like I have another side to myself.
Yeah. Same show. Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard.
Oh, God.
The stuff that they get him to say on American Dad is unbelievable.
Have you guys, I was planning on talking about this, but since you mentioned it, have you guys seen Blunt Talk?
I watched part of one episode, thought it was terrible, and shut it off.
I made it through like the first half of the first season, and I keep meaning to pick it up. It didn't get me in so much that I was burning to watch it, but it was just great to see him do something so radically different.
Yeah. Oh, watch American Dad. It's unbelievable, the stuff that he says.
I've heard about that, but I haven't seen it. So listen, I got one more TV show to bring up briefly. This is one that actually just wrapped up its second season. It's another Netflix show. You can tell who doesn't have cable in his house because everything I watch is off of either Netflix or I BitTorrent, basically. Yeah. It's a show called Bloodline. And I don't remember it getting a lot of notice during its first season, or at least I don't remember hearing much about it.
Takes place in South Florida, right?
Exactly, down to the Keys, strangely enough.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's familiar.
And it's got Sissy Spacek in it, which like right there, like, oh my gosh, Sissy Spacek's still around. She's great in it. It's about a family that owns a high-end vacationing resort down there in the Keys. Sissy Spacek is the matriarch of the family. And the husband is another big heavy hitter that I keep wanting to say is Peter Fonda, but that's not it. It's somebody like that. And it's about the family coming together for their 50th anniversary, and it turns into this sort of drama thing. And there are 3 sons and a daughter. They're all adults, of course. And the third son is this sort of black sheep guy played by, oh God, I just looked up his name and I've blanked on it right now. His name is Ben Mendelsohn. And he's one of these guys that when you see him, you're like, oh, yeah, I've seen him around in stuff before. He's amazing in it. And the whole thing spirals into this like psychotic family dysfunction thing that by the end of it, you're like, oh, my God. And it's set in this gorgeous, setting, of course, in the Keys and all that. One of the things that really stood out to me was the quality of the photography. It was art. I mean, it's a beautiful setting to be in anyhow, but whoever the director of cinematography is in this show deserves every Emmy they possibly can or whatever it is Netflix series get. But it's fascinating. It's totally worth a watch. Anyhow, so there was that first season where they did all this stuff, and then season 2, which, like I said, I think just recently wrapped up, we've watched as well. And it's different in tone. So for those of you who may have watched the first season but not gotten around to season 2, or you started with season 2 and went, oh, I don't like this nearly as much, hang in there. And what you need to keep in mind is the fact that it is not the same tonally as what you saw in season 1. But once you get past that, you realize that they're still doing a lot of really interesting things with the story. It's riveting in a completely different way. They wound up leaving season 2 sort of very unresolved. So, clearly they're going to continue on to season 3. But B, it'll be interesting to see if they keep the same thread or if they manage to spin it off in yet another direction. But if you're looking for something to binge on, it's really interesting, and I really recommend it.
Is that a Showtime show, or is that on?
It's another Netflix.
Netflix. Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool. So, anybody got any more show stuff?
Well, I was just going to drop one last little 30-second bomb in, which is that I haven't actually tracked it down, but apparently the trailer that they showed for the second season of Ash versus the Evil Dead was the bloodiest thing that has ever been filmed, and I forget if I think it Stars that airs it. The network came back to them and said, no, you have to recut that. We're not showing these ads on our channel.
Awesome, I'm in.
So I'm looking forward to season 2 of that, because I enjoyed season 1. I thought season 1 really captured the tone of the Evil Dead films really, really well. So I'm looking forward to that.
I still haven't seen it. I
was about to say I haven't either. I've got it all pulled down. I just haven't taken the time.
I'm too cheap. I don't want to pay for that.
Dude, I got it on my server. How many times do I have to tell you that before you just go watch it? For God's sakes.
I know.
Anyhow, so yeah, definitely. All right, I'm going to keep that on the radar in that case. What do you guys say? We take another break and we'll come back with I have no idea what.
Okay.
Go.
Welcome back to this episode of Geek Tangent. For this next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about electronic gaming. So, Keith, why don't you lead us off?
I am still kind of living in the past. Well, so do you guys, though, because we've been getting on the three of us with Doug. We've been
Wait. Can I just say for a split second, Stefan introduced us electronic gaming, which I just love. Sorry, go on.
Used to be a magazine. Yeah, we've been playing Rocket League, which I know for, whatever, if you're a PlayStation person, you've had it for a year and a half or whatever. Fun as hell. I don't like racing games. I don't care for sports games like soccer. Love Rocket League. Put the two together. I don't know, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup theory. Hell of a lot of fun. And Chris and I've been finding him on Titanfall. We've been playing, I don't know if it's just because they've, promised us the second one is coming and it'll be better. All the maps and shit are free now, so you don't have to, pay to have all the maps. Titanfall's still fun. You know what I installed, though? And I'm not playing it a lot, but I installed it. I did. Pokemon Go. Are you aware how much money is in that? The Nintendo Corporation only owns a tiny piece of that.
Oh, yeah. They're not getting much out of it all. Yeah.
Their stock is going through the roof, though, because no one else understands that they're only a tiny piece of it. The technology was already developed. It was another game that no one knows the name of and nobody played. It wasn't until they had the perfect storm of, stitching it together with Pokemon. You can say what you want about it. People finding dead bodies, people walking off of cliffs, people accidentally stumbling into drug deals. All of these things have happened. The fucking game is genius. It is absolute lightning in a bottle. Fastest and best-selling mobile game of all time. It knocked Kim Kardashian off her high horse.
Well, anything that does that is okay. Are you saying that because you're actually enjoying playing it, or is it just because you're observing the effect it's having sort of in the general space?
Yep, it's interesting to see this groundswell of whatever it is, and it's just the perfect storm. My wife's cousin, he when he was a kid in the 90s it was his age. He was a huge Pokemon card collector and all that. The cartoons were big, the Game Boy games were big. TV show is still on. They continue to make movies, 1 or 2 a year in Japan. They've made 20 some odd feature Pokemon movies that make millions and millions of yen, billions of yen every year. so it's just hitting these people in their, millennials, people in their 20s, maybe early 30s who grew up with Pokemon, and they're all, have a mobile phone game in their hand anyway. Puts all these things together. It actually gets people active. You have to walk around. I installed the thing just to see, and I was curious if there was a Pokemon in my house. Of course there was. There was a Squirtle in my bedroom.
Even know the name of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever. Like I said, my wife's, cousin when he was a kid was into this, and he'd, show me all the. So I know what a Charizard is and all that bullshit. So, but yeah. So there's a Squirtle. I am sure wherever you install the fucking thing, the first time you open it, it's going to give you a Pokemon in front of you. I happen to be in my house, but that's all I was curious, is if there's a Pokemon in my house. The answer is yes.
I actually wound up installing it when it came out. Well, not right away, but once we started to hear this groundswell about it. And I played it for 2 or 3 days. And by played it, I say like when I'm walking home from work or on my way to work kind of thing. First of all, it's an AR game, which is fascinating to me. I mean, realistically, it's overlaying stuff in the real world, which I'm always interested in.
Yep.
But the other thing is that nobody ever talks about, and really this isn't the top priority thing, but like the game itself is actually a piece of shit. I mean, the software is dog crap. The interface is horrendous. It makes little sense. It doesn't respond well. So from like a technical standpoint in that regard, which again is not the point, I get it. Like, it's really not that impressive. Like, God, who the hell did you have designing this thing? But I mean, we're not hearing as much about it now at this point. It seems to be sort of settling down a little bit, and it didn't stick with me. I mean, like I said, I played it for a day or two just out of curiosity, but I kind of bounced off it. But yeah, you're right. It's fascinating to see because this actually doesn't happen all that often. What a ridiculous phenomenon it's been. I mean, I'll commute in the morning, like on the bus. This happened just the other day, and I just happened to notice like 4 people, I think it was, that I walked by as I got onto the bus. They were all staring at their phone playing Pokemon Go.
The company I work for is about 13, 14 people. We don't always have everybody in every day. There are people that are in the field doing marketing, construction administration, whatever. There are days there's only 8 or 10 of us in the whole company, right? So there's one day, we have a weekly staff meeting. What's going on? The guy next to me in the fucking staff meeting is playing Pokemon Go. I'm like, oh my God. The boss is like right there, diagonal to him. It's like, I'm looking at this like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, yeah, it happens. You're at work, people next to you are on Pokemon Go.
There are worse phenomenon, I suppose. It's interesting to see, certainly.
Little did you know, there's a Meowth sitting on your shoulder.
There's a joke there somewhere. I can't quite figure out where it is.
Yeah, the real joke is I know what Meowth is. So
yeah, I guess so. It's another little spot in your brain that's taken up by useless information.
I know.
So you had mentioned, I had a couple of game things I was going to mention as well. You actually wound up touching on a few of them. The Rocket League thing that we've all been playing. Again, this is another one, like Keith said in the first place, we're sort of late to the game, no pun intended, but we've been playing it collectively for the past few weeks, and God, that game is fun. I don't know about you guys, but I get myself so stuck in these deep story-based games or, the Destiny thing for such a long time kind of stuff. And in the back of my mind, I'm always like, I should disconnect and just find a fun game to play, something that doesn't take a lot but is engaging and fun. And we finally got around to doing it. And it's particularly fun because we're doing it together, of course. I mean, it's a whole different thing. You're just jumping on there and playing with bots, but man, what a clever game. I mean, I'm sure even if you don't have other people to play with and you're using the bots, which we have learned, by the way, are really good. So don't think you're going to kick ass just by playing against bots. Yeah. Visually, it's cool. There's actually a lot of nuance to it. I mean, we were playing just a few nights ago, and Doug, who was playing with us at the time, clearly, as usual, is better at this shit than the rest of us are. But you do start to realize that if you play it enough, there's a lot of nuance to it in terms of your maneuverability, getting a feel for how to do stuff. It's not just one of these like bang on the ball and run. Far from it. Just like games like soccer, I suppose, in real life. So,
and the physics are pretty complex, actually.
The physics are fantastic. Keith, we didn't get a chance to tell you this. One thing we did when we played last, it was an evening you couldn't join us. We played one game where we changed the ball into a cube. It screwed with all of us. I actually really enjoyed it. I think it really threw Doug. Mostly because Doug was so used to kicking all of our asses that he was annoyed that he wasn't doing as well, I think.
Yeah. Doug was annoyed that I scored a couple goals very quickly once that we went to the cubic ball. One of the things I actually really like about Rocket League is for people who aren't familiar with both Rocket League and the BBC show Top Gear, one of the things that Top Gear has occasionally riffed on over the years is playing like 3-on-3 soccer using physical cars and like a 10-foot inflated soccer ball.
It is so by far the most creative show on television. Well, it's not really on anymore, by the way, but
yeah,
the BBC show was the most creative show ever.
By the way, quick sidebar. I only just a week or two ago realized that Chris Evans is not the Chris Evans.
Oh yeah, no, totally different British radio personality. Although an understandable assumption when you consider that his co-host was Matt LeBlanc.
Yeah.
Although I mean, LeBlanc's been on British TV actually recently for a while anyway, so he's kind of been semi-based over there. But anyway,
well, you know why they picked him? He was the best racer.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly part of. He's a gearhead. Definitely into cars, and yeah, he did have the top lap time.
Yeah, he kicked Tom Cruise's ass, who used to race cars.
Yeah, well, they reset that board periodically whenever they get a new reasonably priced car, and they get a whole new set of times. So it was for that set of drivers that he had the best record. But
nevertheless,
yeah, no,
give the man credit.
Yeah, and clearly, he's into cars enough to be worth trying out at least as a host. I mean, I think the reason that their attempts to continue that show have failed miserably is that the reason any of us were really tuning in. I mean, okay, sure, we like cars, but you're tuning in for the banter between Jeremy and Richard
Clarkson
and James.
Absolutely. Hell yeah.
Yeah, so you can't just replicate that easily.
Yep.
But anyway, one of the things I like about Rocket League is the fact that you're essentially doing what they did on that show, which is playing soccer with this massive ball and cars. So I just thought that was fun.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that. I totally want to see. I'm gonna have to look that up on YouTube because I've only watched 1 or 2 episodes of the show before and I didn't realize that. So that's totally cool. Now that we're talking about it, I feel like I want to go play Rocket League once we finish this recording.
I know, right?
So I had we brought up Rocket League, and like you, Keith, I'm sort of in retro mode right now, having finally weaned myself off of Destiny a while back. I find myself backpedaling a bit. We discovered Rocket League collectively together, and you also mentioned Titanfall, which we got, I think all of us very soon after it came out, probably on the 360 at that time, and I think we kind of collectively bounced off it. It just didn't quite do it for us. I think we were playing Destiny at that point already. No, Destiny I think came soon after. But regardless, it didn't do much for us. But I gave it another crack. And like you said, Keith, you and I have been playing it. Stefan's been playing a bit of it too. And I actually liked it as a shooter much more than I remembered first time around, despite the fact that mechanically it's not quite as well-rounded as Destiny. It's been suggested to me that they've sort of really tweaked it during the time we weren't playing it, and I really enjoyed it. In fact, I finally wound up leveling myself up to 50 a couple of nights ago, so now I'm like, well, I guess I'm done.
Well, we also went from the 360 to the Xbox One.
Maybe that was part of it. Yeah, I don't know.
Graphics are better, the response times are a little better.
Exactly. So the one other retro type thing I'll bring up is having leveled my guy up to 50 in Titanfall. I kind of figured, even though I could keep playing it, certainly I'm just like, well, I guess I'm done. And I set it down, and I had a moment where I'm like, well, now what? And I finally wound up diving into Mass Effect 1.
Oh, look at you.
Is backwards compatible on the Xbox One.
Yep.
I had played part 2 back when it was on the 360 and really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. And I always told myself, geez, I kind of wish I'd started with 1 and so I could go through the whole series. So I started in on it a few nights ago, and it is a slog. It is mechanically, movement-wise and stuff, very clunky. I've sort of finished the first segment where you're on the Citadel and doing all this shit before you finally get onto the ship, and it's been a bit of a slog. And I finally got on the ship, and I'm starting to traverse the universe. I don't know if I have it in me.
It's 9 or 10 years old now, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, something like that.
It was an early 360 game.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to bother, because the other thing I'm contending with is like, if I really slug my way through part 1, then it's like, well, okay, I guess I'll move on to part 2, which I've already played and completed.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of waffling about maybe I'll just jump to 3 and say screw it and do that, or move on to something else. I don't know.
Yeah, now you can play 3 with the better ending too. So
Yeah, right. Hey, listen, still in the game thing, I had one other topic I wanted to bring up about that, which is shifting away from the console stuff. I wanted to take a moment to talk about a couple of mobile games I've been playing. I'm not generally a big mobile player, but there are 2 games I've been playing recently on my iPad that have both kind of sucked me in. The first one is Batman Underground, which just came out a couple of weeks ago. And you are not playing Batman at all. This is... I struggled a little bit to figure out exactly how to describe it. It's sort of a strategic crime lord control game where you play some of the villains from the Batman series, and you hire and control henchmen, and you have a base, and you're supposed to take over regions and territories, and you swap between the different villains, Harley Quinn, Scarecrow, Mr. Freeze, and stuff like that. And it's sort of this odd mishmash. There's a lot of XCOM in it, which I really like. That's kind of what drew me to it in the first place. And it's been an interesting game. I don't think I'll wind up taking it all the way to the end, but I've enjoyed dipping my toes in it for the past week or two. One of the interesting elements about it is when you go on these sort of attacks or heists, I guess I should call them, you can either choose heists that are computer generated, or you can raid the bases of other players and basically F their shit up, which is kind of fun too.
Well, this sounds like Metal Gear Solid 4.
It could be. I don't know. But that's an interesting one. The other one I wanted to mention is...
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was going to
the last one, whatever the fuck.
Spot you on that one.
Yeah, thanks.
The other one I wanted to bring up is actually one that came out a little while ago, but I think it came out in tandem with the latest Hitman game, which is the episodic one that I think is still slowly being released, and it's called Hitman Sniper. And it's basically a sniper game. They give you this great, vista view of a large, fancy mansion, and there are probably other levels I haven't gotten to yet. You're given a mission where you have to suss out which guy to kill. There are all sorts of creative ways to do it. It moves really well. It's just hella fun, basically. And both of these are free, so they're totally worth checking out. Really, of the two, I think Sniper's the more refined, fun game. Basically, I've only made it 8 or 10 levels through it at this point, but they're both fun if you got yourself an iPad. I think, like most games, personally at least, they're not worth trying to play on an iPhone just because of the small screen real estate, even though you got retina displays on these iPhones. But if you got yourself a half decent iPad, check them out. Hitman Sniper and Batman Underground.
Nice. I still play Hitman Go once in a while on my iPad. Also fun.
I love that. They've done a couple of spawn-offs from it now. I know they've done a Tomb Raider one.
Oh, really?
I understand is surprisingly good. It's not just a different skin for Hitman Go. They've done some different things with it. I haven't looked at it myself. But,
that sounds great.
Hitman Go is just a fantastic strategy game that's just so gorgeous and well thought out. It's really beautiful. Yeah, that's another great one that's worth checking out. So, yeah, basically look for Hitman on the iOS store, and you're going to find something good, it sounds like.
Yeah, and forget about all those bad Hitman games you played in the past, because they're not like that.
No, they're completely different. Same IP, but different structure and everything altogether. So they're definitely worth it.
It's actually fun, and you don't have to fucking solve a puzzle just to figure out how to kill someone. You're not killing people. I mean, you are, but there's no guns. Whatever. Just get it. It's good.
Yeah, it's cool. So, what do you guys say we take one more break and we'll close out the show?
Sounds good.
Excellent. So welcome back. We are here for the final segment of episode 7 of Geek Tangent after a long absence. Needless to say, we've had a lot of stuff to cover. We've sort of gone through the typical mixed media stuff, did some movie, TV show, and video game stuff. And I wanted to close out by telling you guys a little bit about some experience I recently had being introduced to VR development. We've talked a little bit about VR and AR, augmented reality, on the show in the past, and clearly it's an area of interest not only for us but for the masses at large as this technology starts to come into the consumer market. The place I work right now is within the past month, I mean, I've only been there about a month and a half or 2 months, but they've done this very quick deep dive into learning how to use VR, and they're pretty serious about it. And one of the cool things about it is after 3 or 4 weeks of working with it, they introduced everybody else in the office to join them for a half-day tutorial on the basics of developing for VR. And it was really interesting. I just wanted to mention it briefly to sort of give you a little bit of a portal into it. Basically, for those of you who don't know, most VR development these days, as well as many video game development projects and things like that, are based on a system called Unity. It's a development engine that lets you do all sorts of, whether it's virtual reality stuff or obviously game-oriented non-VR applications. It's a complex program. There's no doubt about it. But the great part is it's freely available. I can throw the URL in the show notes. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's a freely available application that you could find for Windows or PC, Windows or Mac. You need a fairly decent machine, so don't try running it on something pretty ancient. You'll probably have a hard time with it. And while it is not an easy program to learn, and more importantly, if you're trying to do VR development, there are a whole bunch of concepts, about 3D space that, you sort of have to familiarize yourself with. But one of the things the guys in my office who have been spending time on this have been pointed out repeatedly was, 3 weeks ago, we dove into this stuff and we didn't know anything about it apart from downloading the application itself. And we learned everything we know by watching YouTube videos put together by guys that are 10 years old. And there's this pregnant pause where you go, what? And I'm, no, I'm serious. Like if you get on YouTube, there's tons of stuff that a lot of it's pretty well done and it helps get you up and running. And it's done by young kids. We were joking about that, but the bottom line is there are resources out there to help you get up to speed very quickly. The other interesting point that I'll make about the Unity engine, and again, I did this half-day thing. About 2/3 of the way through it, I started to get lost, to be honest, but and that wasn't because the guys that were showing us what they were doing weren't good. It was sort of saturation overload for me. But one of the interesting points about the Unity engine that's worth mentioning is that it's also very much built on the Steam store. Steam has positioned itself as like a central repository for VR assets, which I had no idea about. I know them as a game seller, online seller, whatever, but they've got this whole other side thing where they are the primary library for VR assets. And the functionality to purchase those assets, whether they're free or for pay, is built right into the Unity engine. So all you need is to create a free account on the Unity website, download the tool, have credentials for Steam. You join the two together, and right within the Unity development system, you can jump over to the Steam store within a window, browse stuff, look for stuff, and load assets directly into your Unity system right away to apply to your projects you're working on. It was fascinating. It was really cool stuff. There's a lot of great stuff that's even freely available, whether it's textures or whole environments to put in there. There's a whole zombie thing. Of course, everybody wanted to download the zombie thing.
Yeah. This is why we don't have the goddamn Half-Life 3 yet. Fuck's sake, Valve.
That's a whole other topic. I don't know. I totally missed the whole Half-Life thing.
I was joking.
Anyhow, so if you have even a passing interest in VR, hell, the tool is free. Clearly, there are resources out there that can show you at least some of the basics, and it's fun to play around with. Even if you don't have VR hardware, I didn't get this far, but I'm told there's an emulator within the Unity system, so you at least have a way of traversing yourself through your own creation for testing or screwing around purposes or whatever. Even if you just download it, fire up the Steam store, and pull down some shit to play with without you building anything, it's pretty cool.
So, yeah, that's my question. So I'm someone who used to do, I guess the building blocks of virtual reality. I used to do a lot of 3D modeling. I used to use 3D Studio. It works with AutoCAD, and now actually AutoCAD has a lot of the tools from 3D Studio built into it. You can see Autodesk scale software and mostly 3D Studio gets used for broadcast television. When you see the CBS logo spin around footballs and basketballs and shit flying through it, that was done with 3D Studio. So whatever. So I came from that world where I would build, mostly architectural stuff, buildings that you'd either go through, in, around. but it's kind of a controlled virtual reality, and those same tools get used in virtual reality, but it's a lot more complicated than the Unity system you're describing, which sounds great to me.
Yep.
You would have to create all the assets, the 3D assets yourself. It's a separate program that allows the camera to live within it and give someone control to walk around with that camera. This is every 3D video game you've ever played.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, I was coming up in the 90s when this was new. And by the way, yes, I know I was there for Rhino and when Maya came out, and I know Maya's the hotness and all this. And I'm sure
that stuff is all being actively used still. I mean, this
Oh,
Unity
yeah.
hasn't set that stuff all aside, and it's worth noting rather that Unity, the development engine, is really good about being able to import all sorts of stuff.
Okay, so that was my next question. So I can bring in my 3D assets that I've built with, you know, Maya, 3D Studio, whatever I'm using. Rhino was the first NURBS modeler. Instead of drawing boxes and giving them sides and making a 3D box, NURBS were the first thing. Again, this was 90s technology. Pixar was some of the people who developed this, but NURBS, it would understand like balls and, you know, softer shapes and how you can stretch them and make these amorphous things. And it really opens up the world, obviously, for organic, you know, people and things aren't square rectilinear edges. We're all curves. And NURBS modeling allowed that to happen. So yeah, so that was my next question is, can I bring in a NURBS model from Rhino and then next to it a rectilinear thing from, you know, 3D Studio and have it understand and be able to.
I can't answer that definitively, yes. But the guys that were doing the tutorial for us made it very clear that they've been shocked. I was going to say, you know, stunned/shocked at how open the Unity system is and how many different things they've been able to import into it without trouble. I mean, hell, for you, you know, if you still got any of those old AutoCAD drawings, I don't know how far back that stuff goes. Grab the Unity thing and try throwing one of your drawings in there just for the hell of it. I mean, one of the guys, our office is moving into a new space in the not too distant future. He got his hands on one of the AutoCAD drawings for the new space and threw it into Unity, and apparently did it very simply. So yeah, apparently one of its real strengths is how flexible it is for asset import and integration, which is really cool.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Again, I encourage anybody who wants to just fiddle around with it. The tools are free, and even if you don't have the wherewithal to understand the notion of 3D modeling and motion and all that stuff, just hook into the Steam store and pull down some crap and play around with it. It's really cool.
I'm so gonna do this now. I you know, if you pay attention to the right forums and listen to the right people, you learn there's software out there that's free. You know, you talk about all this stuff that is available and you can have it. I can't believe I'm endorsing Autodesk. So Autodesk makes something called Autodesk Inventor. It gets used a lot for industrial design, product design, this sort of thing. More Doug's wheelhouse. If he was here, you could maybe talk about it. But it was free. There was a time, it was a limited amount of time when they were opening up new features to the software. And for a month or two, and I got turned on to it by Adam Savage. It was free. There was a link on a Autodesk website and you could download the whole thing. Of course, I grabbed it. It's sitting on a memory stick somewhere because it's multiple gigabytes. It is a hugely powerful program for any of this kind of 3D modeling. This is beyond the 3D Studio stuff. This is it's for building real world stuff like your cell phone. That kind of thing was probably all drawn in Autodesk Inventor. They'll do, you know, circuit board layouts, the actual product. That software talks to the CNC routing machines and all the plastic injector things and all that crap. Of course, your 3D printers, everything talks to those. So yeah.
But not CNC Music Factory?
Yeah, well, them too. I'm sure they were manufactured by computers. We know that. But, yeah. So anyway, we're back on the VR thing again, and I was just telling you guys with the microphones not recording that I'll tell everybody now. I was sitting in a class, basically a continuing education class at work, and it was a rep that came in. It's sort of like, you know, you see these temporary or office furniture walls in, you know, cubicle farms and that sort of thing. It's a company that they will build, they're walls that are furniture, so they can get moved around and stuff, but they make things with components. Things can easily get plugged in and out of them. You can, all kinds of cable management. They can integrate smart boards, flat panel TVs, all kinds of technology, iPads like mounted right into the glass. They'll have touch glass over it, so you're not actually touching whatever the thing is, but it'll still register your touch on the wall, and it'll read through all kinds of cool shit like that. Anyway, so everything they do is custom. So they can't show you, they can show you what your design is going to look like someday, I guess, but, to sell you on stuff, they can't take you to 50 different buildings. They want you to be able to experience it, but in a showroom situation or on a trade show floor, like a convention. And we had the interior designer that I work with went to NeoCon, which is a big interior design conference every year in Chicago. It doesn't matter. But these people were there. And at the time, they had made a deal with Oculus. They were doing Oculus virtual reality to, show off their products, what they can do, what they look like. And, you could walk around and the panels and all this stuff. Well, in recent months, they had gone away from the Oculus, and now they're using, from what the woman was describing, it sure sounded like the Microsoft HoloLens. When I asked her if that's what it was,
yes.
she didn't know enough about it. But, she was explaining an augmented reality situation where now you could say, well, what are these, custom demountable walls with all this technology integrated going to look like in my office? Against my window, what's it going to look with, my lighting, my carpet, whatever the crap. And so they're doing augmented reality. So it's interesting to see in action, like we were talking, that it seems the augmented reality just has more real world applications. Here I was just this week sitting in a class where, proof is in the pudding. They've switched from Oculus to HoloLens to sell their product, bottom line.
For a company like that kind of makes sense, where you want to be able to show your products within a space that the person is actually considering putting them into.
Yeah, it's a good fit.
It's interesting. I started talking about the VR thing. I hadn't thought of this really until we were talking offline, but I realized that I never mentioned the fact that I got a chance to try the Microsoft HoloLens about a month ago. Yeah. And I think I've said in the show before, generally speaking, I'm kind of more pro AR than VR. I think there's a place for both. Clearly, VR is going to be big. When there's a viable VR headset that I can buy to hook into my Xbox or something, I'll probably buy it. Who am I kidding? But personally, just for whatever intangible reasons, I'm much more excited about the AR thing. And as it turns out, Microsoft was doing a tour to show off the HoloLens around the country, and they were making a stop here in Boston about a month ago. So I signed up and managed to get into it, and you get like a 10-minute window with the thing. It physically looks pretty much like what we've seen in all the photography and imagery that they show online. No big differences there. One of the interesting points about the physicality of it is that it's a standalone device. Whereas unlike current VR systems, whether it's the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift, you're tethered to a high-powered PC. This thing's standalone. It's got the Wi-Fi built into it, so on and so forth. If I recall correctly, I asked what the battery the power life on it was. We'll hack that out maybe. Or maybe not. It was a good one. And if I recall correctly, they said it'll go for a good 2 to 3 hours, which is pretty good for, how long could you tolerate fiddling around with one of these things?
Yeah.
So it's one thing to see the promo videos that they show, and there are a bunch of them, and I encourage you to check them out. You can find them on YouTube or on Microsoft's dedicated website, and they sort of foresee potential applications for this device. But to have the thing on, it's surprising how close they really are to those promos. So a couple of things about it. First of all, it's still a fairly bulky device. It was more comfortable for those of us who wear glasses. And I remember, Keith, way back when, this is something we were talking about. When I tried an Oculus Rift a year or two ago, I had a lot of trouble because I was wearing glasses.
Lots of
the HoloLens sits far enough off of your face that wasn't as big a problem. The image quality is really good. Huh. It's really surprising that the objects it overlays on top of your real world view look as sharp and clear as they do. That was really cool. The whole thing has this system where It will take you walk it through the process of taking snapshots of the environment you're standing in, and it very easily and seamlessly understands the surfaces that you're surrounded by, so that when you subsequently, overlay whatever image it may be, it knows where to sit it on your table over on the other side of the room, or when you move around, so on and so forth. So that part was really cool. There are a couple of simple hand gestures that you use, taps with a finger, that will register you want to move this object, so on and so forth. There was a fairly well thought out menu system involved with it, which, if you think about it, this is a whole different interface paradigm. You aren't using like a menu bar across the top or anything like that. So they're clearly still trying to figure out how to most easily enable you to interact with these virtual objects. But it was a really slick, complete product. It was really impressive. It's got stereoscopic sound, so that if you have an object like a tiger sitting on the table in front of you and it's making sound, as you move your head back and forth, the audio changes, which is very clever.
That's nice.
I mean, obvious, but the fact that they're pulling it off pretty well is pretty cool. Again, the image quality was fantastic. They closed the demo with showing you an image of the orbiting galaxy that just sort of floats in space in front of you, and you can walk around it. So it's angled at like a 45-degree angle, and the planets are slowly moving around, and they're rotating within their not spheres, orbits.
Orbit, yeah.
And so you can like walk behind it so that you're looking at the backside of it. You can get a little bit closer to the planets themselves. It was amazing. The one downside I noticed at the time, and this is one of those things that they'll fix in time, of course, is that although the visor itself covers your entire field of view, the actual area where the augmented reality images appear is only a small subset of that. So like when I put the thing on and they started the demo, they're like, the room is covered with objects for you to interact with. You only see the stuff that's more or less right in front of you. You have to kind of move around and find where the other objects are, because there's only a small rectangle of area that's actually being projected onto. But I have no doubt that's one of those things that they'll figure out in time. But I know that the device is on the verge of becoming a consumer product. Of course, for developers, it's still $3,000. So who knows what the first release of the consumer version will be?
Hang on, you said a dev kit is $3,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. To buy the device now, it's $3,000 a pop. Yeah, they aren't there yet.
I actually listened to someone who bought dev kit 2 for the Oculus, and it was hundreds, not thousands of dollars.
Well, it's been in development longer, and it's much closer to market. Hell, it's coming to market now.
Yeah.
HoloLens isn't quite there yet, so we're bound to see. I read an article just the other day where they were saying that the HoloLens is coming close to being sort of like first consumer preview available, I should say, and they expect the cost to come down. But when they say that, like maybe it'll come down $500, maybe $1,000. This is first gen stuff. I mean, this isn't something that right out of the gate everybody's going to be buying. But
yeah,
just like the first couple of Oculus Rift dev kits and stuff like that, it'll change. But it's fascinating technology, and it's amazing to see like how much they've realized what it is that they're actually portraying in demo videos. I mean, like it's basically there. Wow. It's really cool. Yeah.
That's encouraging.
And I know there are a couple of other companies doing the same sort of thing. I was going to go to a demo of one whose name I'm blanking on, but clearly Microsoft, in my opinion, is leading the way in this so far. It's going to be really fascinating to see how it morphs and develops in the coming months and years.
I've heard the HTC Vive is excellent.
It's awesome. We have one in the office, yeah.
Oh, I mean, so what the problem is, though, you have to set up these little perimeter boxes and stuff around the room.
Yep.
There's some setup, and you have to be willing to have some devices in the room, if you want to do this. Yep. But apparently it's fantastic.
It's pretty cool. I haven't had much of a chance to play with it myself, but I've seen other people. We have it up on a TV so you can see what they're seeing, and there's some beautiful stuff in it. I did have it on once, and they were doing it was like a techno thing where there was techno music playing. There were these giants walking over you and stuff like that. And it's a bizarre experience, but it was very well realized, and the spatial acuity it has because of those sensors you're referring to is pretty cool. They're gonna do great stuff with it.
It'll be an interesting couple of years to see how all this stuff develops and what shakes out and what works. And
yep, you never know. Another year from now, we might be doing the podcast in VR.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds cool. What do you say we wrap it up?
Yep. Feels like a show.
So that pretty much wraps it up for episode 7 of Geek Tangent. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for rejoining us, I should say. We've been away for quite a while, and we're looking forward to picking the ball back up here, and this will be the first of many more episodes to come. In the meantime, you can keep in touch with us. Give us your feedback by emailing us at contact@geek-tangent.com.
You can also find us on Twitter as geek_tangent.
And go ahead and check us out on YouTube. Go to YouTube/Geek Tangent Podcast. You'll find all of our episodes there, and in some cases, there's some fun video. In addition, go ahead and give us a review on iTunes. It's free. Doesn't only takes a minute. Helps us get up in the ratings a little bit. iTunes. You may have heard of it.
Look for more exciting news from Geek Tangent in upcoming weeks.